The chamber was so large that Ambassador David Holt could not see its ceiling. He stood alone on a platform of black glass, suspended above an endless drop. Around him, rising in circles that seemed to go on forever, sat the representatives of 2,000 alien civilizations. Some were made of light. Some were made of metal. Some were shapes that hurt his eyes to look at. David was 58 years old. Before the first aliens arrived on Earth, he had been a high school teacher in a small town in Ohio. He taught history to teenagers who did not care about history. Now he stood before creatures older than human civilization itself. The silence in the chamber was complete. High, Arbiter Nexion of the Velori Dominion unfolded its massive wings. The creature looked like a praying mantis, carved from yellow crystal, standing 12 meters tall. Its voice filled the chamber like thunder. Species designation: humanity. Homeworld: Earth. Sol system. Your request for membership in the Galactic Council has been studied for 7 cycles. This tribunal will now give its decision. David kept his face calm. Behind him, visible through the chamber's crystal walls, hung Earth's diplomatic ship. The United Earthship Prometheus was the size of a small moon. The aliens had expected a shuttle. They got something else entirely. Humanity had built it in 18 months. They had only discovered faster than light travel 12 years ago. Humanity, Nexion continued, has shown certain abilities. You have achieved interstellar travel. You have survived first contact without dying out. You have demonstrated skill in both war and peace. A wave of sound passed through the assembly. David's translator implant caught fragments of it. Words like primitives and short-lived and violent. Nexion raised one blade-like arm for silence. However, the Council has decided that humanity does not have what is required for membership. Your species is too young, too unstable, too small. Your sun is an ordinary star in an ordinary arm of an ordinary galaxy. Your planet is a small ball of rock and water. Your lives last only decades. What could you possibly give to civilizations that have existed for millions of years? David felt the weight of 8 billion souls pressing down on his shoulders. He thought of his daughter, born on the lunar colony last year. He thought of the soldiers who died in the Unity Wars, so that Earth could speak with one voice. He thought of the scientists who worked until they collapsed trying to crack the secrets of warp travel. He stepped forward. High Arbiter, may I speak to the tribunal? Laughter rippled through the assembly. The sounds were strange and alien, but their meaning was clear. Amusement. Contempt. Nexion tilted its enormous head. You may speak, human, though I do not see what words could change the mathematics of your insignificance. David reached into his coat and pulled out a small object. It was a worn leather wallet. He opened it and showed a photograph of his family. This is my daughter. Her name is Maria. She is 1 year old. By your standards, she will be dead before most of your representatives finish their morning thoughts. The chamber grew quieter. In her first year of life, she learned to smile, to laugh, to reach for the stars through her nursery window. She does not know that those stars belong to species who think she is worthless. She does not know that her entire life will pass in the blink of an alien eye. David put the wallet away. But here is what she will do with that blink. She will love. She will dream. She will create things that have never existed before. She will look at the impossible and ask why not. And when she dies, in what you call an instant, she will have lived more fully than some of your civilizations have lived in 1,000,000 years. Silence. You ask what we can offer. Let me ask you this. What have your ancient superior civilizations accomplished in the last 12 years? He pointed to the Prometheus. Because in that time, we went from a species that had never left our solar system to a species that built that. We did it while fighting a world war. We did it while our planet tried to kill us with fire and flood. We did it while burying our dead and raising our children and falling in love and writing songs and doing all the messy, beautiful things that short-lived species do. He turned to face the full assembly. You measure worth in years. We measure it in heartbeats. And I promise you this, there is more fire in one human heartbeat than in 1,000,000 years of your eternal silence. The chamber exploded with noise. Nexion struck its wings together with a sound like thunder. Silence. The noise died instantly. Ambassador Holt, your passion is noted. It changes nothing. Nexion's compound eyes glittered. The judgment of this tribunal is final. Humanity is denied membership. Your species will be classified as a protected primitive culture. You may travel within your local cluster, but you may not participate in galactic affairs, trade, or governance. Your status will be reviewed every 500 years. David's heart stopped. 500 years? Everyone I know will be dust by then. Precisely, Nexion replied. That is the point. On the Prometheus, Admiral Yuki Tanaka watched through a quantum-linked display. Her hand hovered over a console marked with 2 words, Departure Protocol. David turned back to face the tribunal. His voice was calm now. Too calm. High Arbiter, before we accept your judgment, I have one question. Ask, in your millions of years of existence, has any species ever voluntarily left the Galactic Council? A strange stillness fell over the chamber. Nexion's mandibles clicked. Left? No species has ever. There is nowhere to go. The Council encompasses all known space. David smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then you should know. Humanity is not asking to join your council anymore. We are informing you that we are leaving. Not your station. Not your space. He paused. We are leaving your reality. The Prometheus began to move. But it was not moving through space. The ship was folding, compressing, sliding sideways into dimensions that should not exist. Every sensor in the Galactic Council went haywire. David spoke his final words into the chaos. You measured our worth in years. You should have measured it in imagination. Goodbye, High Arbiter. When you need us, and you will need us, the door will be closed. The Prometheus vanished. David vanished with it, and the Galactic Council, for the first time in its 3-billion-year history, realized it had made a terrible mistake, but they did not yet understand how terrible. On the Mordecai homeworld, a species of brilliant engineers who had built the galaxy's hyperspace lanes, a new inscription appeared on their greatest monument. It was carved in letters of light that no technology could explain. The inscription read, They taught us how to leave. We have followed them home. 18 billion Mordecai vanished without a trace. The Council's mistake was only beginning. 3 standard years had passed since humanity disappeared into the unknown. The galaxy was falling apart. High Arbiter Nexion sat in its private chambers on Nexera Prime, studying reports that grew more terrifying with each passing day. The Mordecai were only the first. The Luminari, beings of pure light who composed the most beautiful music in the universe, had vanished next. Then the Zendi, organic computers who processed the Council's most complex calculations. Then the Hollow Kings of Nebula 9. Then the Dreamweavers of the Urt Collective. 17 species in 3 years. All gone without a trace. All left the same message. We have followed them home. But the disappearances were not the worst part. Something else was happening. Something that made Nexion's ancient blood run cold. Across 40% of known space, beings had stopped creating. Scientists could not conceive new theories. Artists could not imagine new works. Engineers stared at broken machines and could not think of ways to fix them. It was as if someone had reached into the minds of trillions and stolen something essential. Next Ion summoned its most trusted advisor, a being of pure mathematics named Vector. Vector was one of the oldest entities in existence, a consciousness made entirely of equations and logic. "What is happening to us?" Nexion asked. Vector's form flickered with calculations. "I have been analyzing the pattern for 3 years. The correlation is undeniable. The creative drought began exactly when the humans departed. That is impossible. The humans were primitives. What could they possibly have taken from us? I do not know yet, but I am detecting something else. In the systems most affected by the drought, there are traces of an energy signature we have never seen before. It matches nothing in our records, except one thing." "What?" "Human brain activity during moments of inspiration." Nexion processed this information in silence. It did not want to believe what Vector was suggesting. But the mathematics did not lie that far across the galaxy. Commander Iris Okonkwo stood at the helm of the U's Vigilance. She was 34 years old, born on a generation ship before Earth developed warp technology. She had spent her entire life among the stars. The Vigilance was a small frigate, one of the few human vessels that had stayed behind when the Prometheus departed. Iris had remained because she believed someone needed to watch, to witness, to remember. Now she watched as Krath warships filled her sensor display. Lord Vexor of the Krath Imperium had grown desperate. The Krath were a species of living metal, the largest military force in known space, and they were losing their ability to think strategically. Their greatest generals stared at battle maps and saw nothing. Their weapons designers could not conceive of new technologies. Vexor had decided that the solution was simple: capture the remaining humans, force them to bring their people back. Whatever they had taken, they would return it. "All crew to battle stations," Iris ordered. "Broadcast on all frequencies. We are a diplomatic vessel operating under Council Treaty. We are unarmed except for defensive systems. Any attack will be considered an act of war." The Krath fleet did not respond. Instead, it opened fire. The Vigilance should have died in the first volley. It was a frigate facing a battle fleet. The mathematics were clear, but something strange happened. Every Krath missile missed. Every plasma bolt veered away at the last second. Every railgun round dissolved before impact. The Vigilance remained untouched. On the Krath flagship, Lord Vexor watched in disbelief as his weapons failed. His tactical officers ran test after test, but the systems were functioning perfectly. The weapons simply refused to strike the human ship. "What sorcery is this?" Vexor demanded. Then a new voice appeared on all frequencies. It was not human. It was not alien. It was not machine. It was something older than any of them. The quiet protects its children. The Krath fleet fell back. Lord Vexor, for the first time in his existence, felt something he did not recognize. Later, he would identify it as terror. On Earth. Maria Holt, now 4 years old, watched her mother working at a massive display of equations and star charts. Dr. Elena. Holt had spent the last 3 years trying to understand what her husband had discovered, what he had led humanity into. "Mommy, when is Daddy coming home?" Elena looked at her daughter with tired eyes. "Soon, baby. He is just very far away." She returned to her work. The dimension that David had led humanity into was not empty, as they had first believed. It was a membrane, a barrier between the known universe and something beyond. Something vast and ancient and aware. Humanity had not discovered a hiding place. Humanity had discovered a door dot, and something on the other side had noticed them. Elena called an emergency meeting of the Global Science Council. Her presentation was brief and terrifying. "When my husband took humanity into what we call the quiet, we believed we were escaping. We now know we were being invited. There is an entity beyond the edge of that dimension. It has been waiting for a species brave enough to cross over. And it has made us an offer. What kind of offer? Asked Director Way. Protection, knowledge, power beyond anything we have imagined. Elena paused. In exchange, it wants us to stay, forever. It wants us to let the old galaxy die. Silence filled the room. There is more, Elena continued. I have discovered why the galaxy is experiencing a creative drought. When humanity left, we took something with us. Something we did not know we possessed. She displayed a graph showing innovation rates across galactic history. Every major advancement in galactic civilization correlates with human activity. Not directly, since we were unknown until recently. But our dreams, our stories, our songs have been leaking into the cosmos since we evolved. We have been transmitting raw creative potential into the universe without knowing it. We are the spark. And when we left? When we left, we took the spark with us. The galaxy is not just losing creativity. It is losing the ability to be creative. The species that are vanishing, the Mordecai, the Luminari, they felt the loss and followed us. They chose to follow the spark rather than live without it. Director Way sat back, stunned. Then the Galactic Council did not just reject a trading partner. They rejected everything, Elena finished. They rejected everything that makes civilization worth building. A transmission arrived from the quiet. Ambassador David Holt appeared on screens across Earth. He looked tired but alive. We understand now. We know what we are. But there is a problem. The entity beyond the edge has made us an offer, and I do not know if we should refuse it. He paused, and his eyes held a sorrow that Elena had never seen before. It is asking us to never return. It is asking us to let everyone who rejected us fade away. Part of me wants to say yes. They called us worthless. They laughed at our daughter. They tried to make us small. His voice broke. But I keep thinking about Nexion's face when I told them we were leaving. It was not just arrogance. There was fear underneath. They have been alone so long they forgot what connection feels like. They did not reject us because they thought we were worthless. They rejected us because they were afraid we would prove them wrong. The transmission ended. Elena held Maria close and wondered if humanity would choose mercy or justice. Both felt equally right. Both felt equally terrible. Across the galaxy, the darkness spread. Half of known space had now lost the ability to conceive original thought. Wars that once ended in negotiated peace now ended only in extinction. The price of rejection was becoming clear. But the final cost had not yet been paid. 10 standard years had passed since humanity vanished into the quiet. The galaxy was unrecognizable. 2/3 of all advanced civilizations had collapsed. Without the ability to innovate, species that depended on complex technology watched their systems fail one by one. Ships no longer flew because no one could repair them. Medical advances halted because no one could conceive new treatments. Wars raged not for territory, but for the dwindling resources of a universe that had forgotten how to grow. The Galactic Council still existed, but barely. Of the original 2,000 member species, fewer than 300 remained functional. The great station of Nexera Prime had gone dark in sections, its maintenance systems failing without anyone able to fix them. High Arbiter Nexion was dying, not from age or injury, from despair. For the first time in its 2-million-year existence, Nexion could not solve a problem, could not imagine a solution, could not create a path forward. Vector, the mathematical entity, attended Nexion in its final days. There must be a way, Nexion whispered. In all of recorded history, there must be a precedent. A species that returned. A door that reopened. There is no precedent, Vector replied. No species has ever returned from the quiet, and the door does not open from this side. Then we are doomed. Perhaps, or perhaps not. Vector paused. I have been running calculations for the past 10 years. There is one theoretical possibility, but it requires something the Council has never done. Tell me. We must apologize. Nexion made a sound that might have been laughter if it were not so close to weeping. Apologize? To who? The humans are gone. Not all of them. Vector displayed a map of the galaxy. Scattered across its span were small dots of light. Human enclaves. Communities that had refused to leave. People who had stayed behind when the Prometheus departed. There are approximately 80,000 humans still in our space. They have been hunted by some, protected by others. Lord Vexor's campaign to capture them failed when the Quiet intervened. But they remain. They live among us. What good does that do? The humans did not take the creative spark with them on purpose. They did not know they possessed it. But the spark is not gone. It is merely suppressed. When a human creates, the spark activates, however briefly. A single human painting a picture or writing a song generates a burst of creative potential that can sustain an entire solar system for months. Nexion processed this information slowly. Its mind, once sharp as a blade, now struggled with even simple thoughts. Then we must gather the remaining humans. Make them create. Force them to. No. Vector's form pulsed with urgency. That was Vexor's approach, and the Quiet intervened. The spark cannot be forced. It must be freely given. The humans must choose to help us. And why would they, after everything we have done? What must we do? We must admit we were wrong, publicly, completely, without reservation. The Council must humble itself before the species it dismissed as insignificant. Only then might the remaining humans choose to help. Only then might the door to the Quiet open. On a farming colony near the Cygnus Reach, a human named Thomas Holden tended his crops. He was 67 years old. He had stayed behind when the Prometheus left because his wife was dying and too ill to travel. She had passed 2 years after the departure, but by then Thomas had nowhere to go. He lived alone now, trading vegetables to passing ships for the supplies he needed. The aliens who visited him were desperate, broken creatures, nothing like the proud beings who had once dismissed his species. They begged him for stories, for songs, for ideas. Anything not Thomas gave what he could. But he was tired. And he was only one man. One night, a ship landed in his field. It was unlike any vessel Thomas had ever seen. A form of crystalline beauty that seemed to glow from within. From it emerged High Arbiter Nexion, supported by mechanical frames, barely alive, but still moving. Thomas did not run. He had nothing left to fear. "You are Nexion," he said. "I watched you condemn my people on the broadcast." Everyone did. Yes. Nexion's voice was barely a whisper. "I am what remains of the one who judged your species unworthy. And now you come to my farm. Why?" Nexion lowered its massive head until its compound eyes were level with Thomas's face. "I have come to beg." Thomas stared at the creature that had once ruled a galaxy. He thought of his wife, who had died asking why the universe could not find room for humanity. He thought of his children, who had left with the Prometheus and were now beyond his reach. He thought of the world he had lost and the emptiness that remained. Beg for what? For forgiveness. For help. For a second chance. Nexion's body trembled. "We were wrong. We were fools. You are not insignificant. You were everything. And we did not see it until you were gone." Thomas sat down on the steps of his farmhouse. He was quiet for a long time. "My wife used to say that pride is the most expensive thing in the universe. You can buy it with everything you have, and all it buys you is loneliness." She was wise. She was human. Thomas looked up at the dying sky. I cannot speak for my people. I am just a farmer. But I will tell you what I can give you. Anything. Thomas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small harmonica, a battered instrument he had carried since childhood. Sit with me. Listen, and I will play you a song my grandmother taught me when I was a boy. Nexion sat. Its ancient body creaked with the effort, but it sat. Thomas raised the harmonica to his lips and began to play. The melody was simple. An old earth folk song about a river that ran through mountains, about seasons changing and children growing and love lasting through time. It was nothing special by any grand measure. Just a farmer playing a song on a warm harmonica beneath an alien sky. But as Thomas played, something happened. The air around them began to shimmer. The dying crops in his field straightened and grew green. In the sky above, new stars began to form where none had been before. Light poured from the harmonica like water from a spring. Nexion watched in awe as reality itself responded to the music. This was what they had lost. This was what they had thrown away. Not technology or power or knowledge. Something far more precious. Hope. When Thomas finished playing, the night sky was transformed. Where darkness had been, now there was light. New stars. New possibilities. The spark of creation, given freely. One song, Nexion said, its voice breaking. One human. One song. And you have given more to the universe than my entire species has given in 1,000,000 years. Thomas put the harmonica back in his pocket. It is not about the song. It is about choosing to play it. Anyone can create, but you have to decide it matters. A message appeared in Nexion's systems, transmitted from somewhere beyond known space. From the quiet itself. One human. One song. One spark. You begin to understand. But understanding is not enough. The door will open only when the galaxy that rejected us chooses to embrace what it once despised. Gather your counsel, Arbiter. The trial is not over. It has only just begun. Nexion looked at Thomas with something like hope, a feeling it had not experienced in millions of years. Will you help us? Will you speak to your people? Thomas stood slowly, his old bones creaking. I am just a farmer. But farmers know something that great civilizations often forget. You cannot force a seed to grow. You can only give it what it needs and wait. He gestured to the transformed sky above them. You have taken the first step. Now take the rest. Find the other humans. Show them what you showed me tonight. And maybe, if you are lucky, they will choose to help you. And if they do not? Thomas smiled sadly. Then you will have learned what we learned when you rejected us. That some doors, once closed, never open again. The trial was not over. But for the first time, there was a chance. The Grand Tribunal Chamber of Nexra Prime had not been this full in 15 years. Not since the day humanity was condemned. 300 surviving species had gathered. But they were not here to judge. They were here to be judged. At the center of the chamber, where Ambassador David Holt had once stood alone, now sat a holographic projection of Earth. Around it, 80,000 points of light represented the humans still scattered across the galaxy. Farmers, traders, teachers, artists, dreamers who had stayed behind. And in the highest seat, where High Arbiter Nexion once presided, sat a human child. Her name was Lily. She was 11 years old, born on a refugee ship fleeing Lord Vexer's purges, raised in hiding, educated by aliens who had recognized what their leaders had not. She had never seen Earth. She had never met another human. Her age, she was terrified. But she was also the one the remaining humans had chosen to speak for them. Not despite her youth. Because of it. Children, they reasoned, see things clearly. Children do not forget cruelty, but they can forgive it. Children represent what humanity has always valued most, the future. You asked to speak to us, Lily said, her voice small but steady in the vast chamber. So speak. Nexion, barely alive, supported by machines that kept its ancient body functioning, rose from the assembly. Child of humanity, I speak for the Galactic Council. I speak for 3 billion years of civilization that called itself supreme. I speak for every species that looked upon your people and saw only primitives to be pitied or ignored. The chamber was completely silent. I speak to confess that we were wrong, that we were blind, that in our arrogance we dismissed the very thing that made the universe worth inhabiting. We offer no excuses. We ask only for the Chan. See to make amends. Lily listened. She did not respond immediately. My grandmother tells me stories about Earth, she said finally. She says there are trees there that are older than some of your species. She says humans used to fight wars over ideas. Not territory, not resources, but ideas. She says we have always been strange, always been difficult, always been too much and not enough at the same time. She looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. I do not know if I can forgive you for what you did to my people. I am 11. I do not know many things, but I know this. She stood, and somehow, in that moment, she seemed larger than the chamber itself. You did not want us. You called us insignificant. You tried to make us small, but we were never small. We were seeds, and you could have been our garden. Lily held up a small device. A transponder linked to every human enclave in the galaxy. 80,000 humans remained behind. 80,000 sparks of creativity, still burning in your dying universe. If you want our help, truly want it, then you must do something no civilization in your history has ever done. She paused. You must ask. Lord Vexer, reduced to a fragment of his former power, rose from the craft delegation. Even broken, even desperate, his pride still flickered. And if we refuse? If we take what we need by force? The lights in the chamber flickered. From everywhere and nowhere, a voice spoke. It was not the child's voice. It was not any voice that had been heard before. It was vast and patient and older than stars. You will not take by force. You will ask or you will end. This is not a negotiation. This is the law of the quiet. Every species that exists does so because it learned this lesson, whether it remembers or not. Cruelty is entropy. Humility is survival. Choose. The voice faded. Vexer sat down. His metal body trembled. Nexion, with the last of its strength, spoke the words that 3 billion years of pride had made nearly impossible. Humanity, we ask, please, help us. The chamber was so quiet that Lily could hear her own heartbeat. She looked at the hologram of Earth, a planet she had never seen, a home she had never known. My grandmother also told me something else. She told me that humans are stupid. We fight. We hate. We hurt each other. We make the same mistakes over and over again. She smiled, but she also told me this. We never, ever give up on second chances. Lily pressed a button on her transponder. All enclaves, this is Lily. They have asked. Begin. Across the galaxy, 80,000 humans started to create. On a space station near Alpha Centauri, a woman named Rosa began to paint. Colors flowed from her brush that had no names, images that came from somewhere deeper than memory. On a trading post in the Andromeda cluster, an old man named Kofi started to write. Words poured from him like water from a broken dam, stories about love and loss and hope that he had kept locked inside for 15 years. On a refugee camp on the edge of known space, children started to sing, a song they had never learned but somehow knew, passed down through generations in the blood and bone of their species. And with each act of creation, the darkness receded. Stars that were dying began to burn again. Ships that could not fly lifted from the ground. Minds that could not conceive of tomorrow suddenly overflowed with possibility. In the quiet, beyond the edge of reality, billions of humans and the species who had followed them felt the change. The wall between dimensions grew thin. Ambassador David Holt, aged but unbroken, stood at the barrier with his daughter Elena beside him. Maria, now 15, watched from behind them. They asked, Elena said, wonder in her voice. After everything, they actually asked. Humans are stupid, David replied, smiling. But we never give up on second chances. He placed his hand against the barrier. It felt warm. The entity that lived beyond the quiet spoke one final time. The children return. Make room for them. The barrier began to fracture. Light poured through the cracks. Not the light of stars, but something older. Something that had been waiting since before the first star was born. On Nexera Prime, the assembled representatives watched in awe as the first ship emerged from impossible space. It was the Prometheus. But it was not alone. Behind it came the Mordecai, the Luminari, the Zendi, the Hollow Kings, the Dreamweavers, the Tide Singers. Every species that had followed humanity into the unknown. They emerged in numbers that defied comprehension. And they had changed. The humans who left were brilliant but limited, creative but mortal, dreamers trapped in failing bodies. The humans who returned were something else. Their eyes held depths that were not there before. Their words carried weight that bent reality. They had touched something beyond the edge of existence and brought part of it back with them. Lily watched the Prometheus descend toward the chamber. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Grandmother was right, she whispered. We never give up. The ship's hatch opened. Ambassador David Holt stepped out, older now, marked by years in the quiet, but alive. He looked around the chamber at the species who had rejected him, and then he did something no one expected. He bowed. Thank you, he said, for asking. The great humbling was complete. But the story was not over. The price had been paid in suffering. Now it was time to build something worthy of that price. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. 20 standard years had passed since. Ambassador David Holt told the Galactic Council that humanity was leaving. Now humanity had returned, but they had not returned alone. From the quiet came ships beyond counting, not just human ships. The Mordecai, the Luminari, the Zendi, the Hollow Kings, the Dreamweavers, the Tide Singers. Every species that had followed humanity into the unknown emerged with them. And they were changed. Elena Holt, now in her mid-40s, led the diplomatic team that met with the reformed Galactic Council. Nexion had finally passed away, too ancient and too broken to survive. In its place sat a committee of survivors, Lord Vexer among them, humbled beyond recognition. We return, Elena said, not as rulers or conquerors. We return as what we always were, part of this galaxy. But things will be different now. What do you demand? Vexer asked, his voice small. Demand? Elena shook her head. We demand nothing. We are not here to replace you. We are not here to control you. We are here because the quiet taught us something essential. Isolation is not survival. It is a slow death disguised as victory. She gestured to the beings around her, humans and aliens alike, all bearing the mark of their time beyond reality. We left because you rejected us. We returned because rejection is not the end. Every species in this hall has been rejected by something, by circumstance, by other species, by the universe itself. But you survived. You adapted. You grew. That is what life does. Lily, now 26 years old, stepped forward. In the years since the great humbling, she had become something like a legend, the child who spoke for humanity, the voice that called 80,000 sparks back to light. The price has been paid, she said. Not by you alone, by all of us. 20 years of fear, 20 years of dying, 20 years of learning what we almost lost. The price was not punishment. It was education. What did you learn? Vexer asked. Lily turned to look at the vast assembly. That worth is not measured by age or power or size. That the spark of creation lives in every being that dares to dream. That the galaxy is not a hierarchy. It is a garden. And every garden needs every flower. The final act was not a battle or a negotiation. It was a gift. From the quiet, the humans brought something unprecedented. A technology that allowed any being to touch, however briefly, the creative potential that humanity carried naturally. It was not mind control. It was not forced inspiration. It was simply an opening, a door within the mind that led to possibility. The first to receive the gift was Lord Vexer, the being who had once tried to enslave humanity, who had burned convoys of refugees, who had embodied everything the old galaxy valued. When the process was complete, Vexer stood in silence for a long time. Then slowly, the metal creature did something no one had ever seen a Krath Dudat had created. From its own body, Vexer shaped a small figure, a human child, rendered in living silver. It was Lily as she had appeared in the Grand Tribunal chamber 11 years ago. Small, fragile, infinitely powerful. I think I understand now, Vexer said. You were never the primitives. We were. We had forgotten how to grow. You reminded us. David Holt, ancient now but still present, watched from the edge of the chamber. His granddaughter Maria, now in her 30s, stood beside him. Her daughter, David's great-granddaughter, played at their feet. Grandfather, Maria said, what happens now? David smiled. Now? Now we do what we always do. We build. We dream. We make mistakes. We learn from them. We keep going. That sounds hard. It is. That is why it matters. The story did not end with a climax. It ended with a quiet moment. Thomas Holden, the farmer from Cygnus Reach, received a visitor. It was the successor of the being Vector, a new mathematical entity that had studied humans obsessively since the Great Humbling. I have come to thank you, the being said. The records show that you were the first to give freely, the first to play a song for the Arbiter. Your act of kindness began the chain that led to everything. Thomas, now 82 and stooped with age, shrugged. I just played a harmonica. My grandmother taught me. She learned from her grandmother. It goes back as far as anyone can remember. That is what we did not understand, the being said. You were never disconnected. Every human carries the accumulated creativity of every human who came before. You are not individuals. You are a river, and rivers cannot be measured by the size of their drops. Thomas nodded. He understood. He had always understood, in his simple farmer's way. You want to know what the price really was? Yes. Thomas looked up at the sky. A sky now filled with ships from 1,000 worlds, all learning to create again. The price was this. We had to leave so you could learn what we took with us. We had to let you feel the cold so you could understand the warmth. It hurt for both of us. But pain is not the enemy. Stagnation is. He pulled out his harmonica, the same battered instrument he had carried for 80 years. Here, this is for you. My grandmother gave it to my mother, who gave it to me. Now I give it to you. Play it sometimes. Remember what it taught you. And when you meet someone who thinks they are too important to learn from a primitive, play it for them. The being took the harmonica with reverence. I will treasure this. No, Thomas said. Use it. That is how you treasure it. Ambassador David Holt gave one final transmission before he passed. It was broadcast to the entire galaxy. They called us insignificant. They measured our worth in years and found us wanting. But worth is not measured in years. It is measured in what you do with the time you have. His voice was old but strong. Humanity lived fast and burned bright. We dreamed impossible dreams and made them real. We loved fiercely and lost greatly, and got back up every single time. They thought they could ignore us. They thought they could dismiss us. They thought, when we left, that they were free of us. He smiled one last time. They were wrong. We are humanity. We are the spark. And now, finally, the galaxy understands what that means. His eyes closed. The price has been paid. Now let us build something worthy of it. The transmission ended. On Earth, on the Moon, on 1,000 worlds across the galaxy, beings of every shape and form looked up at the stars. Some were human. Some were not. But all of them understood now. The universe was not a competition. It was a collaboration, and it was only just beginning dot in the nursery of the lunar colony. A baby opened her eyes for the first time. She was the great-great-granddaughter of David and Elena Holt. She knew nothing of the struggles that had come before, nothing of the rejection or the exodus or the return. She knew only the stars above her window and the song her mother sang to her Dot, an old earth folk, song about a river that ran through mountains, about seasons changing and children growing and love lasting through time. The spark lived on Dot, it always would.